QAnon supporter Marjorie Taylor Greene wins Georgia Republican primary. A U.S. businesswoman who had expressed support for the QAnon conspiracy theory has won the Republican nomination for a seat in the House of Representatives. Again, if you don't know what QAnon is this conspiracy theory that started on 4chan, then moved to 8chan, and now it's moved somewhere else, that basically states that Donald Trump isn't actually an idiot like he appears, but he's secretly working with his people to oust the deep state, whatever the fuck that means, who are secretly embedded in the government and enabling child trafficking rings operating out of many places, up to and including a pizza place in Washington, D.C. So it's a bunch of bullshit. It's, like, insane. It's nonsense. This goes up to and includes things like JFK Jr. didn't actually die in 1999. He secretly faked his death, or used a time machine to escape to the future of today. I'm not even fucking kidding. I'm not kidding. This is the thing some of these people believe. Marjorie Taylor Greene is now expected to be elected in November to represent Georgia's heavily conservative 14th congressional district and become QAnon's first devotee to Congress. It comes amid a social media crackdown on the conspiracy theory. QAnon says, quote, deep state traitors are plotting against Donald Trump. Ms. Greene is part of a growing list of Republican candidates to express support for the conspiracy theory. In another major result on Tuesday, Ilhan Omar defeated a well-funded challenger to put her on track for re-election, along with other members of the squad of Democratic congresswomen. What happened in Georgia? Ms. Greene, a businesswoman who owns a construction company with her husband, beat neurosurgeon John Cowan for the Republican nomination on Tuesday. I don't know anything about John Cowan, but I'd imagine if he's not a QAnon person, then he is probably more fit for the job than she is. She'll face Democrat Kevin Van Ostel in November, but is widely expected to win in the conservative district. Remember, a literal pedophile also almost won, because in the South, even if you like to fuck kids like Roy Moore, you're still better than a Democrat. Galaxy brain. The controversial candidate has previously expressed support for QAnon, a wide-ranging, unfounded conspiracy theory that says Donald Trump wages a secret war against elite Satan-worshipping pedophiles in the government, business, and the media. In a YouTube video, she praised Q, the pseudonymous figure who started the conspiracy theory as a, quote, patriot. In recent weeks, several social media sites have taken action against QAnon, with Twitter banning thousands of accounts linked to the conspiracy theory, and TikTok blocking hashtags related to it from appearing in search results, among other measures. The FBI has designated QAnon a potential domestic extremist threat. Bear in mind, the Pizzagate thing, Pizzagate, as they call it, where they were claiming that this, like, pizza place, Ping Pong Pizza or something it's called, in Washington, D.C., it's like a really well-known pizza place there. Some politicians go there, famous people go there, rich people go there. Either way, it's a pizza place. And they were claiming that this was a place where they were trafficking children out of the basement, despite the fact that it has no basement. So a guy showed up with a gun and, like, was waving it around and being like, let me into the basement! I'm gonna save these kids! He's a crazy person. And this was all enabled by this insane conspiracy theory, right? So, it's wild. Absolutely wild. It is a domestic terrorist threat. Aside from QAnon, Miss Greene has positioned... Oh, God, why am I having so much trouble reading today? Aside from QAnon, Miss Greene has positioned herself as a strong supporter of Mr. Trump and his pro-gun, pro-border wall, and anti-abortion. Several Republican officials spoke out against her campaign earlier this year when videos were unearthed showing her making offensive remarks about black people, Muslims, and Jews. What a shock. A QAnon person is a racist anti-Semite? I'm shocked! Ms. Greene celebrated the results on social media. Quote, the GOP establishment, the media, and the radical left spent months and millions of dollars attacking me. Tonight, the people of Georgia stood up and said that we will not be intimidated or believe in those lies, she wrote on Twitter. I'm excited to be the next Congresswoman of Georgia 14. God bless America. Mr. Trump on Wednesday congratulated Miss Green, calling her a future Republican star. Marjorie is strong on everything and never gives up. A real winner. Congratulations to future Republican star Marjorie Taylor Greene on a big congressional primary win in Georgia against a very tough and smart opponent. Marjorie is strong in everything and never gives up. A real winner. That's almost too coherent. I wonder if he wrote that or that was a staff tweet. I don't know if you know this, but one of your stream clips on YouTube has a wiki link attached defining QAnon. Yeah, I know. When you talk about QAnon or anything on YouTube and YouTube picks up on it, they'll put a disclaimer on it because they don't differentiate between the wacko, the wackos promoting the theory and people like me who talk about it and talk about how crazy it is, which is fine. I'm glad that there's an actual Wikipedia article attached to those, so any crazy person who thinks that they want to watch my video about how QAnon's bullshit, they can look at the Wikipedia article and be like, oh, it's not true. Ideally. That's ideally how it would work. Voter Pamela Reardon told the Associated Press news agency that she supported Miss Green because of her honesty. She's not going to be bought by anybody. I could tell that her heart was pure. Oh, God. Let's see what this video's on about. Let me pause the music. These people are idiots.
In the past few months, a bizarre conspiracy theory has taken root firmly on the fringes of the American right.
Where we go one, we go all. Where we go one, we go all.
These people are taking an oath to QAnon, a mishmash of conspiracy theories which holds Donald Trump as the savior of the world. They also hold some disturbing views.
The pandemic wasn't real, and the race war isn't real.
And it's tearing families apart.
The person I knew as my mother is probably not coming back.
Exclusive research seen by the BBC shows a huge spike in interest in this conspiracy theory during the pandemic. But what is QAnon?
So, QAnon is a very elaborate conspiracy theory that purports that the world's controlled by an elite cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles. The QAnon community believes that this cabal...
This just sounds like the satanic panic of the 80s with extra steps.
Media, Hollywood, and especially politicians like Hillary Clinton. They believe that Trump, with the assistance of high-level military intelligence officials, is releasing information in posts on anonymous web forums like 4chan and 8chan and 8kun.
But it's become a sort of cult of Trump. Though not all QAnon followers were into Trump before.
I've never voted in my life. I do not believe in the voting system whatsoever. And when Trump came along, I thought he was another Illuminati puppet.
Fake news, fake press.
Nick Natoli is a musician, but like a lot of QAnon believers...
Do you have a tattoo of Jigsaw on his face? That's an interesting choice.
He can spend up to 16 hours a day online.
JFK was definitely murdered by CIA. 9/11 was an inside job. People in our government who are working towards a deep state who are trying to keep us controlled.
This is conspiracy overload for me. I'm not sure I'm ready for it. Is there a conspiracy theory that you don't believe in?
That's a great question. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now. I've only been actively posting, I'd say, for the past couple of months. But the response that I've gotten is insane.
Yeah, a lot of conspiracy people like to watch other videos that reinforce their already beliefs, the things that they already believe, right? Just because people are watching your videos on this nonsense doesn't lend credence to the fact that it's true. Why am I having so much trouble talking today? God.
Exclusive research seen by the BBC looked at the use of hashtags specific to QAnon. Here's how many posts there were over the 2 years before the pandemic. And then in March, this happened. On Facebook, in just 4 months, membership of the biggest public QAnon groups rose by 700%.
That's fucking scary. I'm telling you, I talked about this yesterday, and this is a tinfoil hat bullshit thing. But I'm telling you, I swear, if Trump gets desperate enough, by the end of the year, he's going to be like, fuck it, we're just going to arrest a bunch of my enemies and people in the Democratic Party, right? And he's going to claim, like, well, a lot of right-wing people believe in this QAnon bullshit, even though it's not true. Let's use it as an excuse. Let's say that all that was true. We'll find someone to pretend to be QAnon, and we'll say that all these people are pedophiles, and we'll fabricate evidence, and then I'll be the dictator of America for life. We're going to pull a Putin. Like, that's a tinfoil hat bullshit thing in its own right, but, like, that kind of shit scares me. I could absolutely see that happening, and 50% of this country would fucking cheer. Like, yay! Dictator Trump! Own the libs! Ugh.
Most followers seem to be in the US, but there's been a rise in posts from the UK, Germany, and Brazil.
These vast increases in conversation came at a time of societal instability and at a time of turmoil for a lot of people. And people were looking for an answer as to why everything was happening. People were also locked down in their homes. They were, stuck to their computers, stuck to their phones all day. So they had more exposure to this kind of thing online.
You're an organisation that covers extremism, so why are you studying QAnon?
QAnon was...
You're hoping he has a heart attack in the next 2 months? I don't. That'd be awful. Do you know how, like, much of a martyr he would become? And most people on the right wouldn't believe that the fat man who eats KFC and McDonald's constantly and thinks exercise will shorten your life, they won't believe that that guy had a heart attack. They'll be like, it was the deep state. They had him killed. He knew too much. And then for the next 50 years, we have to hear idiots talk about how great Donald Trump was. And if only he'd gotten a second term, that he would have won. Like, no. He needs to lose the election and be fucking embarrassed. Like, no. No one should make a martyr of that dude.
Was labeled a domestic terror threat by the FBI last year. It was born on platforms that are really associated with white supremacist movements, with far-right extremism. And although you can't really label Q followers as that, the conspiracy is tangential to that side of extremism. It takes on anti-Semitic tropes. It really kind of targets the same people as far-right extremists as well.
Another site that's seen a huge surge in popularity recently is this page on the message board Reddit. People are coming here to post about family members that they feel have been sucked into the QAnon conspiracy.
Casualties.
A lot of
we
these
should check that out
older,
sometime.
Parents or even grandparents. We've spoken to a few of those who've been posting, but we're going to hide
What do
their
I think
identity.
about Biden's choice of Harris as VP? Look, she wasn't my first choice, and I don't like the fact that she was an attorney general, but a thing a lot of people don't bring up is her voting record in the Senate, or in Congress, rather. She voted the same as Bernie Sanders 93% of the time. Like, she's fine. She's fine. She's not the person I would have picked, but she's not this awful person that a lot of people are making her out to be. And even I made fun of it on Twitter, like, oh, wow, really? You're gonna pick someone who worked with the cops in 2020 when everyone's really against the cops? But, like, she's fine. She's fine.
Because some of their relatives...
And certainly better than Mike Pence. Let's put it that way. Because at the end of the day, we have a two-party system, very unfortunately. I agree it needs to change. It doesn't change the fact that in 2020, when we're voting in November, we have a choice between two campaigns. Biden and her, or Trump and Pence. And those are your options, and you can vote third party if you want, but it's not going to do shit. So, I would pick, and I'm pragmatic in the way I vote and the way I deal with these things. And at the end of the day, even though Biden isn't my first choice, he's the better of the two choices we have. It's easier to get to a leftist position from a liberal position than it is to get to leftist positions from, like, right-wing or fascist positions. Like, I think it's a pretty simple calculation that you can make and a value judgment.
Quite vulnerable.
She believes that Bill Gates created the COVID pandemic.
That COVID-19 is biowarfare that only affects pedophiles.
And also created the upcoming vaccine.
Bleach is a cure-all.
Which is going to contain microchips to track everybody.
I said to him, you realize that they believe Democrat politicians and celebrities are literally eating babies? And then he messaged back, yeah, I believe that.
A lot of this is a fine line between, heartbreaking and hilarious.
Some of these families feel they've lost their relatives to a cult.
Because they
QAnon
have.
has an evangelical aspect.
QAnon belief, if you're really into it, is a fucking cult. Because there's nothing any reasonable person can tell you about the facts and how QAnon has said a bunch of false stuff. For instance, QAnon said in 2017 Hillary Clinton is in custody right now. No, she wasn't. She's still out, living Hillary Clinton's life, right? So QAnon has said countless things that didn't come true, and yet a bunch of people still believe it, and they, no matter what, they'll make excuses for it. It's like a cult. It is a cult.
Where followers encourage each other to convert friends and family. They call it red pilling, a reference from the Matrix films.
Update from the trenches. Keep red pilling.
I hate that shit. The Matrix was made by trans women about being trans. Stop using it for your right-wing bullshit conspiracies.
Keep going, because it worked. It's working. It's beautiful.
Some relatives find it especially hard to deal with a QAnon belief that the pandemic is a hoax.
My father is a cancer survivor and he's immunocompromised. This is putting his life at risk if he starts to believe these things too.
She's 81. She's not wearing a mask. She's not social distancing in any way.
She implied that my girlfriend's mother, who had COVID-19, was a predator. That's when kind of snapped a little bit.
What do you think of the pandemic?
I think it's a hoax. I think that the rumor on the street is that President Trump is trying to get all these people to go to jail for pedophilia, child sacrifice, and that the deep state has control of the media and put out this story to try to save their ass.
It's a global pandemic, idiot! Do you think the media in, like, I don't know, Japan, China, fucking North Korea, Germany, France, the UK, Russia, do you think the entire world's media is working together, including every country on the world's leadership, despite the fact that they have opposing interests? Do you think every doctor and hospital worker on the planet is in on this? The absolute boundless idiocy is astonishing and frightening.
It's likely there'll be at least 14 QAnon believers on the ballot in the US in November. One of them could even make it to Congress.
Psionic
Marjorie Taylor
Valkyrie,
Greene
thank you for
is
following.
in a runoff in Georgia in a safe Republican seat.
We're here to take the country back. We're not playing around.
This week, Twitter announced it would start policing QAnon content on it.
Good. Ban that shit. Ban it. Get it out. Because it's like a cancer, right? You can't just say, well, the free marketplace of ideas. No. This shit is patently false. It's like Holocaust denial. You fucking excise that shit with a knife. You scrape it off the bottom of your shoe like the shit it is. This spreads to vulnerable people who are gullible and want to believe this kind of crazy shit because it makes them feel special. And if they're not willing to police themselves in terms of the awful, hateful, dangerous content that they're willing to fall for, then the platforms should. It sucks, but it's true.
Its site because of the potential for real-world harm. As the movement grows, many more families will be left wondering what's happened to the people that they love.
I have to accept.
I'm wondering what's going to happen to all these QAnon believers in the next, 5-10 years as nothing happens, because, of course, all this QAnon stuff is nonsense, and it's just not going to happen. There aren't going to be this slew of arrests of people in, the media and the Democratic Party and everything. It's not going to happen. Are they going to, at some point, say, oh man, I was wrong? I doubt it. People don't typically do that even about reasonable things, much less crazy conspiracy theories. Or they're gonna say, damn, the deep state won. Trump couldn't do it as hard as he tried. And it's gonna become this almost like alt history where this like large swath of people on the right just think that like this insane event happened that never happened. It's gonna be wild.
That the person I knew as my mother
thanks for the 50 bits, Daddy Sume,
longer present and probably not coming back.
Scary, scary stuff. Anyway, that's enough of the QAnon thing, I guess, for today. I think that counts as a Chud thing, because it's definitely a right-wing thing, even though it is crossover with, like, conspiracy stuff. It's scary. It's scary living in a country with all these people that believe patently false nonsense and then use it as an excuse to A, hurt other people in the case of stuff like Pizzagate, where someone like threatens the lives of people just trying to eat pizza with their families at this pizza place, or makes them believe that things like coronavirus, a documented, well-understood virus that is a global pandemic endangering those with compromised immune systems, and people who are just unlucky, and then they're going to act like it's not a big deal. It's dangerous. It's dangerous for them as individuals, and it's dangerous for us as a society. So, I don't know. Daddy Sume with 10 more bits. I mean, couldn't that be applied to religions too, though? I guess, but at the end of the day, stuff like QAnon is way more dangerous. Like, I'm not religious, but at the end of the day, 99% of people who are religious, maybe not 99, 90% of people who are religious are benign in their beliefs, and they kind of keep to themselves. They might go to church. A lot of people don't even do that. And they just believe their beliefs, and that's fine. The problem is when people use their beliefs to hurt others, right? Which can be a thing in regard to religion, when people want to limit abortion access or limit the ability for LGBTQ plus people to be open and out in the world without being harassed. I agree, but on the whole, like, that's a human problem. I don't think it's specific to religion, as we see with stuff like QAnon, right? And I think QAnon is like a distillation of those same ideas, right? It's this distillation of the us versus them mentality, while also having this, like, level of, like, I'm morally superior because this is all about saving children. It's not, because this isn't, you know, a thing that's happening. I mean, don't get me wrong. Child trafficking exists, and it's a horrible thing, and, you know, we continue to work on that. There are busts for, you know, these kind of rings all the time, even though they're not part of some overarching, you know, societal deep state plot. There are actual people who traffic children. Look at Jeffrey Epstein, you know, and he was just a really high-profile one. I'm sure there are tons of other ones. But using the fact that those things happen as an excuse to try and demonize people on the left or in the media, it's dangerous. This is like how, and I'm trying not to be Godwin's Law and hyperbolic, but it is an example that makes sense. This is how, like, the Nazis in Germany in the 30s rose to power by being like, you know why all these problems are happening? It's the Lügenpressen, the lying press. It's the Jewish bankers, the New World, you know what I mean? All this shit is like a gateway to fascism. You start blaming problems that might actually exist. Like Germany obviously had economic downturns post-World War I. So instead of addressing those problems in a realistic way, you find people who capitalize on people's fear and insecurity, and they say, I can solve your problem, even though it's a complicated problem. They'll just be like, we just have to stop this group of people. Whether it's the media, or a certain racial group, or a certain political group, or anyone who doesn't believe what they believe politically. This is how you get to fascism. And it's not good. It's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing, I guess.